My wife thought my '67 Corvette was clutter and sold it behind my back, so I took her to court, divorced her, and let her sink in debt. So, I, 39 male, been married for 6 years to my wife Lisa, 36, stepdad to two children, Emily, 19 female, and Sophie, 14 female. Before I ever met Lisa, I bought and restored a '67 Corvette back in my uni days, and it was basically my pride and joy. Lisa always hated that car, called it clutter, said it was a waste of space and money. Alright, so let me just get this all down because I feel like context matters. I didn't just suddenly become obsessed with a car to piss my wife off or anything. The Corvette came way before her, way before the marriage. And honestly, it was one of the biggest things I worked for in my early adult years. Back when I was in uni, I wasn't rolling in money or anything, but I was careful with how I spent what I did have. I worked part-time, saved, and eventually pulled the trigger on a restored 1967 Corvette. It wasn't a practical choice in the slightest. I didn't buy it because I needed a daily driver or a commuter. I bought it because I loved the look of it. I loved the history of it, and because having a classic car was kind of my thing. It wasn't like it was some heap sitting in a backyard rusting away either. It was a proper restoration. Whoever owned it before me put in the time and money. So yeah, I ended up with this Corvette that actually ran well and looked sharp. I can't even tell you how many hours I spent just cleaning it, making small tweaks here and there, or just taking it out on a nice day to drive. When people ask me why that car, I never had some magical answer. I just liked it. Some guys golf. Some guys go fishing every weekend. I liked cars. And this one was mine. Fast forward to when I met Lisa. By then, the Corvette was just part of my life. I had a daily car to get me to work and back. The Corvette was the fun car. I told her about it when we were dating, and I remember her kind of shrugging when she first saw it. She wasn't mean about it, but she wasn't impressed either. She said something like, "So this is the famous car you keep mentioning?" And I laughed it off. After we got married and moved in together, that's when I realized she didn't like it at all. At first, it was just small comments like, "That thing takes up a lot of space in the garage," or "Why don't you just sell it and buy something we actually need?" I'd just tell her it wasn't for sale. Simple as that. I didn't think it had to be some huge debate. But over the years, the tone changed. It went from little jabs here and there to full-blown arguments. She doesn't see the point of it. To her, it's just a lump of metal sitting there. She's very function over form kind of person. If something doesn't have an obvious purpose in her eyes, she calls it clutter. The Corvette became one of those things. She'd say, "We could use that money for something the whole family benefits from. Why are you holding onto a car you drive twice a year?" And I'd answer, "Because it's mine and I like it." She hated that answer. Now, I don't want to paint her as some villain. She's a neat freak. She likes things organized. She doesn't like unused stuff piling up. If I had some collection of random broken gadgets in the garage, I could see her point. But this is a fully restored car worth real money. And not only is it worth money, but it's something I've taken care of for years. The garage setup was always part of the problem. We've got a two-car garage. On one side is her car, on the other side is the Corvette. My daily car gets parked in the driveway, and now that her oldest daughter is driving, her car is out there too. The younger one is still 14, but eventually she'll have a car too, and I can already see where this is going. She's been pushing the whole "we need more space" idea for a while, and she's floated selling the Corvette as the solution more times than I can count. Every single time I said no. Financially, we're not in a bad spot. We don't need to sell it. It's not like the family is starving and I'm holding onto a sports car out of pride. We're doing fine. But for her, it's not about whether we need the money. It's about the fact she looks at the Corvette and sees something that doesn't benefit her or her kids. So in her eyes, it's pointless. One conversation that stuck with me was a few months back when she said, "Why do you even care about this car so much? It's just taking up space. We could have an actual usable garage. Maybe even build some storage or a small workshop, if you weren't so stubborn." And I told her flat out, "Because it matters to me. I bought it before I even met you. It's something I care about, and I'm not going to sell it just because you don't like it." She rolled her eyes, said I was being ridiculous, and stormed off. That was one of many times we went in circles over this. If you looked at our house from the street, you'd think we had it figured out. Two-story, decent yard, driveway that fits 3 cars if you don't mind tight spacing. The garage door opens smooth. Lights pop on, everything clean enough. But living with it day to day is different from a quick glance. The garage has been the center of almost every dumb argument we've had for years. And it got worse once Emily turned 16 and then 19. More drivers, same space. That's the math problem Lisa brings up anytime she wants to start round whatever of, why is the Corvette still here? Here's the setup. Left bay, her sedan, newer model, loaded with whatever driver assistance stuff she likes. Right bay, my red Corvette, on mats, covered when I'm not messing with it, trickle charger hooked in, a couple shelves along the wall with detailing gear, extra fluids, and a small toolbox. My daily driver sits in the driveway to the right, usually backed in because I like a quick exit in the mornings. Emily's compact sits to the left of mine, half on the walkway if she got home late and couldn't be bothered to straighten out. Sophie doesn't drive yet, but she does keep her bike head-on in front of the steps so everyone trips on it. Lisa likes everything spotless. She'll stand in the garage with a microfiber cloth like a foreman and point at things. "What's this?" she'll say, holding up a bottle of wheel cleaner that I put on a shelf literally labeled wheels. I'll be like, that's wheel cleaner. She'll frown. "Do we need it?" And I'll say, "Yes, for wheels." And then she sets it down like it's the most disappointing answer she's heard all week. Every couple months she does air-org. Things get moved, labeled, pushed to corners. I come out to find my socket set in a plastic bin marked MISC, Dad. The Corvette cover ends up stuffed in a tote bag, like a sleeping bag from camp. I'll pull it out and say, "Please stop moving this stuff. I put things where I can reach them." She'll say, "You never know where anything is anyway." I'll point to the shelf and say, "I literally do. That's the point of a shelf." It goes nowhere. The first time the stepdaughter asked about garage space, she said it in a normal way. "Dad, is there any chance I could park inside when it rains? My car fogs up and the doors freeze." I said, "If it's going to hail, sure, we can rotate for a night." Lisa heard rotate, and her eyes lit up like she found a loophole. "Rotate is good," she said, nodding. "We can make a schedule." I said, "No, not a schedule. Once in a while if weather is bad." She sighed, "You're making this hard." I said, "It's my car, and the garage is already full. Parking in the driveway isn't a crisis to me. I've done it for a long time. I leave for work early. I don't want to play car Tetris every morning. Emily gets home late from her campus job. The driveway works fine if people actually park straight. The problem is they don't. I'll come out at 6:15 a.m. and her car is practically diagonal, nose almost kissing the garden bed. I'll text, "Please fix how you parked next time." She'll reply from upstairs, "Sorry, LOL," and that's the end of it. Lisa will say, "She was tired," and I'll say, "So am I," and I still park like an adult. Then there's the stuff. Not mine, hers. Seasonal bins, school project boards, a random treadmill that her sister gave her for free, that no one uses because the belt squeaks and the display resets every 2 minutes. I made a deal. You can keep the bins, but nothing sits on the floor in front of the Corvette. I need space to roll the creep stool and to open the door halfway so I don't bang it. She nodded at the time, but 2 weeks later there was a stack of flattened moving boxes leaning against the front bumper. I pulled them away and she said, "They're not touching it." I said, "They're touching my nerves." The talk about expanding the garage started about a year ago. She brought me a Pinterest board on her phone and said, "Look, see how this family added a third bay and a mudroom?" I glanced and said, "Yeah, nice, not cheap." She said, "It adds value." I said, "So does keeping a classic car in good condition." She narrowed her eyes and said, "Not to me." That line has become her slogan. She could print it on a shirt. Another typical scene. Sunday evening, it's getting dark. My stepdaughter rolls in and leaves the car running while she scrolls on her phone. Exhaust drifts into the garage because she's half pulled up behind the door. I step out and wave her forward. "Either pull up all the way or cut it," I say. She huffs, "I'm texting my friend." I say, "Then turn the engine off." Lisa walks out and says, "Don't talk to her like that." I look at both of them and say, "Like what? Like she's driving a machine in a small space with exhaust fumes?" Emily snaps, "It's fine." I say, "It's not fine." Lisa says, "This wouldn't be an issue if the cars were inside." I point at the Corvette and say, "We've had this argument." Every time we tried to sit down and brainstorm, it felt like I was the only one bringing options to solve this problem that didn't involve selling the car. I said, "What if we do a carport?" She said, "Ugly." I said, "What if we pour a pad on the side and put a good cover for her car?" She said, "Not secure." I said, "We could rotate one night a week for her if storms are predicted." She said, "Schedules don't work with teens." I said, "They work with adults." She said, "You're being petty." I said, "I offered 3 ideas. You offered 1. Sell my car." She said, "Because it's the right one." Sometimes she'd frame it as safety. "It's not about me, it's about my daughters," she'd say, pointing to the driveway like it was a crime scene. They come home late, it's dark. They have to gather their stuff and hurry inside. I said, we have motion lights. We installed cameras. The neighborhood is fine. She said, it only takes once. I said, then teach them to lock the car and keep things out of sight. She didn't like that part because it puts responsibility on them, not on the Corvette. I also kept hearing about family use. How does your car help the family? She'd ask. I'd say, how does your home office help the family? It helps you. This helps me. She said, I use the office to work. I said, I use the car to enjoy the one hobby I have. She said, hobbies can live on shelves. I said, this one has wheels. There were small wins here and there. I installed better shelving so her storage looked cleaner. I moved my detailing stuff into a narrow cabinet so it wasn't visible. I even parked the Corvette an inch closer to the wall by putting a tennis ball marker so I'd hit the spot perfect every time. She noticed none of that. She only noticed that the space still had a classic car in it. Like if the wall was white or the shelf had cube organizers, that would somehow change that fact. The pressure ramped up after Emily started working later shifts. Lisa would text me, she's home late again, driveway is too dark. And I'd reply, motion light is working, I checked it. She'd say, inside parking would solve this. I'd say, lock the doors, keep valuables out of sight, park straight, be aware. She'd say, you're missing the point. I'd say, you're ignoring that the Corvette is not leaving. Then one night, my stepdaughter's car gets broken into. I'm putting quotes there because technically the door was unlocked, so it's not really a break-in. It's more like someone strolled by, checked a handle, and found free stuff. But in the house, it got labeled as a break-in, and that word carried a lot of weight for my wife. That night, I remember I was sitting on the couch watching some dumb show when my stepdaughter comes in practically bawling. Someone stole my purse, she yelled. Lisa ran over, all concerned, asking a million questions. What do you mean? How? Where? Emily blurts out, it was in my car and now it's gone. I already knew where this was headed. I just sat there waiting for the next line. Sure enough, she says, I must have left the door unlocked. Lisa gasped, like that detail didn't matter. That's not the point. The point is someone was in your car. I spoke up. It kinda is the point. If you leave a purse with cash in an unlocked car overnight, what do you expect? That did not go over well. Both of them looked at me like I just kicked a puppy. Dad, that's not helping, she snapped. Lisa shook her head and said, that's so insensitive. She's upset right now. I didn't say anything else, but inside I was thinking, this is exactly why I tell them to lock their cars. This neighborhood isn't bad, but if you're gonna leave stuff visible, it's like putting a sign on the windshield that says, take me. Anyway, $200 cash gone, purse gone, stepdaughter crying. Lisa spends the rest of the evening comforting her, and then immediately pivots to her favorite subject. See, this is why we need more garage space, she says to me once the kid went upstairs. If she could park inside, none of this would have happened. I looked at her and said, no, if she locked the door, none of this would have happened. She frowned, crossing her arms. You're impossible. You always twist things so you don't have to admit the Corvette is the problem. I just stared at her. The Corvette isn't the problem. Leaving a purse in plain sight is the problem. Parking in a driveway isn't a crime. She was getting heated. I'm not going to argue about this anymore. The garage is too small for all of us. You know it. I know it. We need to sell the Corvette and extend it. This was maybe the 4th or 5th time she used the sell it and extend line, but now she said it like she had backup from the incident. Look what happened, she said, pointing upstairs where her daughter was still sniffing. Do you care at all about her safety? That's when I lost my patience. Don't drag safety into this. A locked door is safe. A light on the driveway is safe. Cameras on the garage are safe. Selling my car doesn't magically make the world safe. That's not how this works. She glared at me. So what? You're saying your car is more important than my daughter's safety? I leaned back and just said, I'm saying personal responsibility matters. Your daughter needs to lock her car. End of story. That basically ended the night for us. She didn't say another word, just walked off and slammed the bedroom door. I ended up sleeping in the guest room because I knew if I went in there, we'd just fight all over again. The next day, she came at it again, but calmer. Look, I'm serious. We should consider selling the Corvette and putting the money into a garage extension. We have the land. It would add value to the house. And it would give us room for everyone's cars. It's the smart move. I shook my head. It's not happening. I've told you this 100 times. That car isn't going anywhere. She sighed, then gave me this line. You're so selfish. You'd rather cling to a car you barely use than make life easier for your family. I told her flat out, it's not about use. It's about ownership. I bought it before I even knew you. It's mine. We don't need the money. We don't need the space. What we need is for your daughter to lock her car doors. That's the solution. She didn't like that answer. The rest of the week was cold shoulders and passive-aggressive comments. Anytime the stepdaughter mentioned her car, Lisa would shoot me a look like I was the reason she was parking outside. I did notice one change, though. She stopped making suggestions and started talking like it was inevitable. Little comments like, when we extend the garage, this will look so much better, or we'll have so much more space once that side is cleared out. I'd answer, that side isn't getting cleared out. She'd smile like I was a stubborn kid. We'll see. The weekend after the break-in, I was out in the garage doing some quick stuff, checking tire pressure on my daily, and making sure the Corvette battery tender light was still green. Lisa walked in with a basket of folded laundry, set it down on the workbench like she owned the whole garage, and goes, "So, have you thought about what I said?" I already knew what she meant. I didn't even look up. About selling the car? Nope. Same answer as last time. She leaned against the dryer and crossed her arms. You can't just keep shutting down every suggestion I make. This isn't fair to me or the girls. I said, it's not a suggestion. You're telling me to sell my car. That's not a compromise. That's you getting your way. She fired back. It's not your car, it's our garage, and right now it's basically half wasted on something you don't even drive. I looked at her straight on. I drive it enough. It's not wasted. And yes, it is my car. I bought it before we even met. It's titled in my name. You don't get to decide what happens to it. That set her off. Oh my God, listen to yourself. You sound like a teenager. You're a grown man with a wife and kids to think about, and you're clinging to some shiny toy like it's sacred. I laughed, which made it worse. It's not a toy, and you don't get to lecture me about being grown up while ignoring the actual issue. The car has nothing to do with your daughter's purse getting stolen. If she locked her car, it wouldn't have happened. That's on her, not on the Corvette. She stopped pacing and pointed right at me. You're selfish. I married a selfish man who only thinks about his car. I stood there, probably red in the face. And I married someone who thinks my property is negotiable. It's not. The rest of that day was basically silent treatment. She made dinner, didn't say a word to me. I sat in the living room after, and she clanged dishes in the kitchen like she was building a drum set. The girls avoided both of us, probably sensing the tension, but it stopped. The car talk stopped. Then later on a regular weekday, I came home from work like always. I park in the driveway, grab my lunch bag out of the car, and head inside. Normally, before I go in, I peek in the garage. Sometimes I'll check the Corvette real quick. Just a habit, like making sure everything's where it should be. That day, I hit the garage opener, stepped inside, and nothing. The right bay was empty. I froze. I remember actually blinking a couple times because my brain didn't process it right away. The Corvette was gone. The mats were still there. The trickle charger cord was just hanging on the wall, but the damn car was gone. I walked around the garage like maybe I misplaced it. I even opened the side door and looked at the driveway like somehow I parked it outside and forgot. But no, it was just gone. I went back inside, stomping through the kitchen, calling out, "Where's my car?" No answer. The house was empty. I checked my phone. No messages from my wife. That's when my stomach sank. I knew. I just knew. An hour later, she pulls into the driveway. I'm standing in the garage waiting. She gets out of her car, carrying groceries, and acts like nothing is weird. "Hey, can you help me with these bags?" she says. I cut her off. "Where's my Corvette?" She stops, looks at me, sets the bags down slowly. "It's gone," she says, all calm. "Gone where?" I ask, my voice probably louder than it should have been. "I sold it," she says, like she's telling me what time it is. "We got $90,000 for it. It's done. Now we can finally start on the garage extension." I swear, my head felt like it was going to explode. "You what?" I yelled. "You sold my car? Without even telling me? That's my car." She didn't even flinch. "It's done. The money's in the account. I already called the contractor. This is better for us. You can buy another car someday, and now the girls will have space inside. Everyone wins." "Everyone wins? Are you out of your mind?" I shot back. "You had no right to sell it. None. That car was mine. I bought it before I even met you." She actually had the nerve to roll her eyes. "You're overreacting. It's just a car. You hardly drove it anyway." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It's not just a car. It was mine. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to sell my property like it's clutter you're donating to Goodwill." She crossed her arms. "Stop being dramatic. This was the smart choice. The garage will finally work for the whole family. You should be thanking me. That's when I completely lost it. Thanking you? For selling my car behind my back? For stabbing me in the back and then acting like you're some hero? No, I don't think so. She threw her hands up. You're impossible. I did this for us, for our family. You only ever think about yourself. I stepped closer, pointing at the empty bay. Don't even try to spin this. You did it for you. You hate that car. You've been nagging me about it for years, and you finally decided to just do whatever the hell you wanted. That's not for the family. That's selfish. Her voice got louder. You're being ridiculous. It's gone. Deal with it. I stared at her for a good 10 seconds, trying to calm myself down but failing. Then I said, no, I'm not dealing with it. You were completely out of line. You made a huge mistake. You're going to fix this. Get the car back. She shook her head, smirking like I was a child. The deal's already done. It's not coming back. You can use the money for something else. Maybe another car, something more practical. I shook my head in disbelief. This is not acceptable. You don't just get to make decisions like this about something that's not yours. I don't care if you think it's practical or not. It's mine. And I'm telling you right now, this isn't over. She shrugged, picked up the groceries and said, fine, be mad, but you'll see this is for the best. And then she walked inside like nothing happened. I stood there in the garage staring at that empty space for what felt like an hour. I couldn't calm down. I just kept repeating to myself, she actually did it. Eventually, I grabbed my keys, got in my daily, and drove off. I didn't even know where I was going. I just couldn't be there. So after she pulled that stunt and I drove off, I honestly didn't even know what to do with myself. I ended up just sitting in a Walmart parking lot for like an hour, scrolling my phone, not even really reading anything. My hands were shaking. Not because I was sad or anything like that, but because I was mad in a way I've never been before. I kept replaying the scene in my head. Me asking, where's my car? Her saying, I sold it, like she was announcing dinner was ready. I didn't go home until really late. By the time I walked back in, she was already upstairs. I didn't even look in the garage again because it just pissed me off seeing the empty spot. I crashed in the guest room. Next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She came down, making coffee, scrolling her phone, and said, contractors are coming Thursday to do measurements. I stared at her. You already spent the money? She didn't even look up. I put down a deposit. The rest is allocated. This is happening, whether you sulk or not. I said, it's not your money to spend. It was the value of my car. You stole it. I want it back. She looked at me like I was speaking another language. You're being ridiculous. We're married. What's yours is mine. What's mine is yours. That car was part of the household. I just made a decision that benefits all of us. I snapped, no, you made a decision that benefits you. Don't pretend this was about the girls. If you cared about them, you teach them to park straight and lock their cars. You did this because you hated the Corvette, plain and simple. She slammed her mug on the counter. Stop twisting things. I don't have to ask permission for every single decision. You never compromise on anything. I walked right out the door, grabbed my keys, and left for work without saying another word. That whole week was a war zone. I barely talked to her. When we did, it was all short jabs. She'd say stuff like, you'll thank me once the garage is done, or don't pout, this was necessary. I'd fire back, you stole from me, or you're going to regret this. The kids avoided me, probably because they didn't want to get caught in the middle. Emily actually said once, can you two just stop fighting? It's not that serious. I turned to her and said, not that serious. Someone just sold a car I worked my ass off to buy. Would you feel the same if I sold your laptop because I thought it was a waste of time? She went quiet after that. By Thursday, sure enough, a contractor van pulls up. Two guys with clipboards start measuring the garage and driveway. I stood there watching them, not saying anything, just arms crossed. Lisa comes out smiling, showing them where she wants the extension. This will be so much better, she says. One of the guys nods politely, like he knows he just walked into a domestic minefield. When they left, I told her flat out, this is fraud. You sold something that didn't belong to you. You forged my name on a title or bill of sale to do it. You know what that is? Illegal. She scoffed. We're married. It's community property. I don't need your signature. I pulled the registration from the file cabinet later that night and held it up. Look at the name. Whose name is on this? Mine, not yours. This isn't community property. This is separate property. I bought it before we even met. You had no right. She shrugged. Whatever, it's done. Move on. That's when I knew I couldn't just move on. She crossed a line you can't come back from. So I called a lawyer. Told him everything. He said right away, That's conversion. You can file a lawsuit. I asked, even though it's Lisa? He said, yes, spouses don't get a free pass to steal each other's property. That gave me some relief, knowing I wasn't crazy for feeling robbed. I didn't tell her right away. I just kept quiet, waiting for the paperwork to go through. Every time she brought up the garage extension, I bit my tongue. She'd say stuff like, the girls will finally be safe, and I'd just nod, knowing she was in for a surprise once the lawsuit landed. What ticked me off even more was how she started acting like the $90,000 was her personal bonus. She'd point at the living room and say, we should refurnish in here. That couch is old. Then a day later it was, maybe redo the counters in the kitchen. And then she even said, I think I'll look at SUVs. Mine's getting outdated. With the extra money, it's doable. I just kept my mouth shut. Let her think she was planning all this. Because once the court papers hit, every single one of those little fantasies was going to blow up. The garage extension actually started. Contractors tore up part of the driveway, poured footers, framed out the walls. She was so smug about it, showing me plans, saying things like, once this is finished, you'll see it was worth it. I'd just nod. In my head, I was thinking, wait until the judge tells you to pay back 90 grand you don't even have anymore. The kids seemed excited about the new garage too, which honestly annoyed me more. The Emily said, finally I won't have to park in the driveway. Lisa smiled at her like she just gave her the world. I wanted to say, yeah, all it cost was my car, but I kept quiet. That silence didn't last though. One night, she tried to rub it in again. You've been sulking for weeks. You need to get over it. The Corvette wasn't going to last forever anyway. Now we're investing in something that adds real value. I stood up from the couch and said, you're going to regret this. You think you're clever, but the court is going to see exactly what you did. She scoffed, the court? Please. Who do you think a judge is going to side with? A man-child who won't let go of his toy, or a wife who's improving her family's home? I didn't even argue. I just said, we'll see, and walked off. I went through with the lawsuit. I wasn't bluffing. My lawyer filed for conversion, laid out all the paperwork, showed that the Corvette was bought years before the marriage, titled in my name only, and that my wife had no legal right to sell it. She either forged my name on the sale documents or convinced the buyer without showing proper proof, and either way, it was dead wrong. When she got served, she freaked. I'll never forget her face. She came storming into the living room holding the papers, yelling, you're suing me? We're married. You can't sue me. I just said, watch me. The court hearings dragged on a bit, but in the end, the judge was clear as day. Lisa tried her marital property defense, saying that since we were married, it counted as shared. Judge asked for the title. My lawyer handed it over. Only my name was on it, dated years before the marriage. The judge practically cut her off mid-sentence and said, this is separate property. You had no authority to sell it. Then she tried the family benefit angle, saying she used the money for the garage extension and it was for the safety of the girls. Judge didn't even blink. That doesn't give you the right to sell property that isn't yours, he said. That's conversion. Boom. Case closed. She was ordered to pay me back the $90,000. But here's the thing. The money was already gone. She dumped it all into the garage extension and also took out a loan to cover the extra costs she hadn't told me about. So now she had a court judgment against her for 90 grand, plus a contractor loan, plus credit cards she had been racking up that I didn't even know about. The debt piled up fast. At that point, the marriage was already beyond saving. I filed for divorce. I couldn't trust her anymore. Who sells their spouse's car behind their back and then acts like it's nothing? The court sided with me there too. Since she'd basically sabotaged our finances, the judge wasn't very sympathetic to her during the division of assets. The girls? That was another bombshell. Their biological dad filed for custody once he caught wind of everything. He argued that she was unstable, financially reckless, and not putting the kids first. After everything came out in court, the sale, the debt, the lawsuit, the judge actually agreed. The girls went to live with their biological dad. She later started blowing up my phone nonstop. I'm talking dozens of calls I never answered and walls of messages, sometimes from numbers I didn't even recognize or random social accounts she made just to get through. Every single one was her begging me to take her back, saying she screwed up, she was in over her head with debt, and that she couldn't do it without me. I didn't reply to a single one. She made her choices, and I wasn't about to let her drag me down with her. Meanwhile, I moved on. Yeah, I lost the Corvette, and I'll never get that exact one back. But I walked away with the court on my side, no debt hanging over me, and the freedom to do what I want without someone second-guessing every decision. These days, I've got my eye on a '69 Dodge Charger, and I'm already lining up to go check one out. It won't erase what happened, but I'll build something new for myself. Do I sound harsh? Maybe. But if you were in my shoes, watching someone take something you worked for, sell it behind your back, spend the money without blinking, and then smirk like you should thank them, you'd understand. At the end of the day, she played stupid games and won stupid prizes.